Hi, I am here. Although COVID has taken a longer than expected toll on me, I am capable of forming an adult thought and being vertical right now, which is amazing. So I want to share with you what I can while I can because it's a little bit of a wavy ride for me. And I was gifted this metaphor the other day by talking to somebody who is in a situation that I'm going to try to depict without necessarily depicting it, which is imagine if, like the Indian in the cupboard. And in the Indian in the cupboard, it's a movie where this toy becomes a real live miniature man and has a life among this boy's toys, and this boy and him have this interaction. So this is what I am visioning when I speak this, which is imagine this toy throwing a fit. Like, I don't want to be on this shelf. It's not fair that I'm here. It's alive. You're trying to sleep at night, right? You're just like sleeping. Like, dude, I don't know. You're just like a toy on my shelf. Like, can you chill, please? Like, can you just chill? You've been throwing a fit for a long time. So it could be that the little Indian in the cupboard is throwing a fit by saying, you can't do this to me. It's not fair. You need to see me. Or by being bad, right? Like, fine, if you're not going to see me, I'm going to throw all your shit off the shelf. I'm the only living being here. I'm going to do all this other crazy stuff, right? So somebody said to me the other day, after basically walking all the way to this point, saying, you can't put me on a shelf. This person's come a long enough way to stand for what is desired rather than what is given. And I said, but wait, hold on. Yes, you're actually already on the shelf. Like, that's what's happening. You just described to me for almost an hour that you're actually on the shelf. So there is a mental wavering there, right? Because, and I'll just, let me tell you about the time that I was on the shelf, right? I was fine, if you're not going to see me, I'm going to make you see me by throwing all your shit off the shelf, right? Like, I'm going to sleep with your friends. I'm going to show up at your gigs. I'm going to do all these things that are like, you can't put me on your shelf, right? And I was making it visible and obvious, and I was like the bad girl about it. But in a lot of cases, people are the good girl about it, where they are resentfully and reluctantly showing up at the door of somebody who has put them on the shelf and trying to be good enough and praying that this person takes them off the shelf. But in the dissonance of her experience and her words, which is like, okay, my experience is that I'm on the shelf, and my words are that you can't put me on the shelf. It just reminded me of I had the visual of seeing this little Indian in the cupboard on the shelf throwing a temper tantrum. I thought about all the times I've done that in my life, and a lot of times people that I work with, we do it in the same vibrational essence, just we express it differently, right? Like the good girl or the bad girl, or the good guy or the bad guy. And who's going to take you off the shelf, right? If you are aware, I'm put on the shelf here, right? Because here's the thing. No self-respecting person, in a true sense, in a way, and I shouldn't say it in this way, you can have a lot of self-respect and struggle in the relational realm, right? Nobody who has enough self-respect in their own desire for equality in the relational realm would ever even muster the words, you can't put me on a shelf. Because I never would have walked there in the first place, right? That just wouldn't have been a thing. So already we're working with this like weakened part that is throwing a temper tantrum about being on a shelf, which is like, it's not fair. I'm a victim here. I'm the baby. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. And this other part that's like, there's no reason for me to be here, right? And that's the logical adult part. The blending and clashing of the two is where a lot of people get stuck and stay for a really long time, which is actually an interesting bridge to something that happened the other day that I was thinking about when, excuse me, somebody had emailed me about, basically being in her relationship until she can find a way out. And kind of using that relationship as leverage to get on her feet, which sounds amazing. It sounds like the easiest route, right? But as somebody who's been there, and as somebody who's a little more probably intense than the average person, and if you're watching my channel, you probably are, it is counterintuitive to say this, but that's where people get stuck, in the thought that I'm going to stay here until I can get on my feet. I'm going to stay here because it's not that bad. And we know we'd probably have to leave into a worse situation than the one we're in if we chose to exit, right? That's the reality of being a person stuck between a hard place. And if you're attracted to my channel, you probably don't have a lot of familial support or whatever. You know that you're going to end up in a rougher situation than the one that you're in. So you go, well, I'm going to stick this out. And that will take years off your life and give you cancer, right? There's almost a part of me that it might sound counterintuitive, but I said, like, in these situations, a lot of times you actually just have to throw yourself all the way to the bottom of the well. You kind of do, because then you have to get out. Right now you think, oh, I just this isn't really working out for me. This is toxic for me. This is weird for me. I'm super uncomfortable every day. I'm walking on eggshells. My body is aching. I don't really have to get out because I can be comfortable in this because I'm used to it. But I'm not comfortable where there's like other things, right? But it's in the discomfort of those other things that you go, okay, when you're thrown into a situation, like for me, it was, I chose, after living out on my own on the mountain for a while, to move in with my parents rather than be in a toxic relationship. I literally went back to the hell from which I came from. And in a weird way, retrospectively speaking, I did that because I knew I would be more motivated to get out of there than to get out of this constant tension and disgust and resentment. And I knew either way, if I stayed, it would have blown up. If I left and I was capable of blowing it up myself, I would have blown up. And I mean this in not in like a unhealthy way or like, oh my God, you're amazing. But what I mean is like, I had to bust through all of my limiting thoughts and beliefs, because the second I put myself back in my childhood bedroom with my 2 kids, I was like, no way is this happening for a long time. This is not sustainable. So I was more motivated to leave the whole situation because I threw myself into a worse situation than the one that I was actually in, even though it was whatever, it was annoying. So we get stuck in that weird dissonance of, I can stay, but you can't make me stay. Or I'm really actually leaving. I'm already out, but I'm still here, right? That's like 2 realities blending and insanity for the inner terrain, right? And then we get stuck there because we think that we're out, or we think that we're, demanding what we want and commanding what we need and saying, you can't put me on a shelf, while we're on the shelf, right? So, and we think that we're out while we're right there. Like this person that I'm saying I'm no longer vibrationally attached to, I'm not even in this relationship, but I'm still in this relationship. And we're saying that we're not because we feel emotionally or energetically beyond it, which might be true. But when we think we're going to stay to get our physicality caught up to that energetic, our energetic is always going to go back to the physical, right? Because you didn't make a choice. You're not making a real choice. So, and 2, I want to say that choice in these relational realms in that way, sometimes I work with people, the choice is obviously made by the other person already. They just won't say it. And then the codependent is like, well, they're just telling me this and they're not blah, blah, blah. But the choice is obvious, right? Like, this is what's happening. The obvious is what we can see. This is what's happening. I know it feels conflictual when you're like, I really know that this person loves me. And I really know that this person's trying. But the obvious is, it ain't working for me, dude. A lot of people, they can't see the obvious, and then they question their own reality, right? That's the nature of this paradigm that we're talking about. And then they go, I don't want to make that decision. Oh my God, I would hurt him. I would hurt her. I don't want to make that decision because, we could probably stick this out. And I'm going to say 60% of the time, I could look at that situation objectively and go, dude, the writing is on the wall. This decision isn't even being made by you. But the sad thing is this person is making you feel responsible that you are making a decision when they actually already made a decision that's solidified in the physical reality. And they're tricking you into thinking that you're making a decision when really there's no decision to be made. The obvious is there. They're not choosing you. You're on the shelf. You can throw a fit about it all you want, or you can just hop off the shelf and go find a new room, right? And again, I'm a huge proponent of nuclear families. Duh. It is obvious. Nature intended it. Nuclear families are what's necessary for healthy survival, for healthy thrival. And I am a proponent of not staying in nuclear families because that's what you're supposed to do when your body is literally screaming at you from the inside out that this is not what you're supposed to do. And if you trick yourself into thinking you should stay, and your body just screams longer and longer, and then you have this switch, which is just okay, I ignore the body, I ignore the guttural instinct that I'm supposed to go, despite not having the resources or whatever, that's cancer in the making, right? And then your body gets used to just not listening, and then you stay way longer than you intended. So that's why it's almost good to throw yourself into a situation where you go, okay, it's going to be worse. I know it. I'm expecting it. I expect it to be worse. And I'm going to leave not when I feel settled and ready to go. I'm going to leave the second I know it's go time, basically. That means I jumped in the water. I'm already in the ocean and I'm already swimming to the other island. There's no looking back, right? It's going to be worse than being on the island while I'm swimming. But when I get to the other island, dude, it's on my own. I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to worry about you taking my food, touching my shit, being mean to me, throwing me off, kicking me off, acting like I can stay, whatever the flip-flop is. I don't have to worry about you being in control of my destiny. And it is uncomfortable to get in the water and go to another island and be in control of your own destiny. But if you're on the shelf right now, and you're saying, you can't put me on a shelf, while you're already on the shelf and you're just throwing a temper tantrum, being a good girl or a bad girl or a good guy or a bad guy, you got to get off the shelf, get in the water, and go to another island, right? I know I'm mixing metaphors here, but I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys are well, and I hope to talk to you soon.